listening to Dollars and Cents, brought to you by Midwest Money Management, your local full-service, comprehensive financial planning team. Midwest Money Management, where hope is not a strategy.
We love having him on. It's Connor. Connor is a certified financial planner professional at Midwest Money Management. Connor, how are you doing today?
Al, not too bad. Thanks for having me back.
Love having you back because you've caused issues in my life, and I want to discuss. Last time you were on, we were discussing like rules of thumb for money.
My favorite topic.
Well, I would think if they're rules of thumb, almost everybody could kind of get them. So I was talking with my golf buddies, and I suppose out of the 8 of us, there are 5 of us hanging around after. And I brought up some rules, the rule of thumb. I said, guys, how long does it take you to double your money, if you got it in the market? 5 guys, 5 different answers. And I'm thinking, how can that be a rule of thumb? The rule is the rule of 72, which, hang with me, folks, hard to do on radio. But every single one of them had a different idea on what that took. That's got to be the worst rule of thumb ever. Rules of thumb, make your bed when you get up. It's a rule. I don't get how you can have a rule of thumb no one gets.
Well, so I'm curious what their different guesses at. So the prompt you gave them was, how long does it take to double your money? That's what you were saying?
in the market. And the guy goes, oh, you mean like the rule of 72? The rule of 72, I think most of us old guys have heard. But that's the easy part. Everything gets crazy. One guy, it's 7 years, 7.2 years, and he just swore by it. Next guy, what are you talking about? About every 9 years, maybe 10. Everybody had a number that said that their guy, whoever they talked to, their Uncle Bob, threw him a number. Tell me if I'm explaining this wrong, because it's terrible because I have it written down. Divide 72 by the growth rate of your investments expressed as a percentage. Sorry, we've lost everybody. Here's the thing.
Yeah. So basically, you take whatever you're expecting to get from your investment. So, for example, the easiest one, the most predictable one is you buy a 30-year bond. Although, again, just the disclaimer that bonds do have volatility, everybody, just so you know. So just because it's got an interest rate that's guaranteed doesn't mean that bond's going to return that. But let's say you got a bond that's perfectly immunized to whatever your time frame is, and it's going to get you 5%. Well, if you want to find out how long it would take you for your investment to double at 5%, let's say, you divide 72 by 5, and that's the answer.
Okay. So, and I'm going to make this really
14.4 years for those wondering.
Okay. And because that's why Connor does this for a living. I'm going to go with easier numbers. I put $100,000 into anything that's going to give me this return. I get 10%. 72 divided by 10, 7.2 years is when it will double. That's wonderful. Isn't that wonderful? How in God's green earth am I going to know if... Let me ask you this. Do you know, and it's not a trick question, the market from beginning to today, what's like the average rate? Is it 6, 7, 10? I mean,
it
whatever.
Depends on the time frame between 8 and 11-ish%. If you include dividends, if you don't, is what the S&P is. Now, I would contend that the market is much broader than the S&P, especially in today's world. The bottom line, though, is with this, Al, the reason this is a rule of thumb, and this is a little different than the other ones we talked about, because this is just math. I mean, this is 2 + 2 is 4, but... people think that their experiences are going to be okay. The S&P average is 8%. I keep hearing this. So in 9 years, my investment doubles. Well, it doesn't just do 8 and 8 and 8 and 8 and 8. I'm gonna somewhat butcher this, but we were preparing we have a forecast event every January where we put on a dinner for our clients and prospective clients, and we give a presentation during the dinner. And we do trivia. We try to keep it as not dry as possible and entertaining. And one of the trivia questions was, okay, what's the average rate of return of the S&P 500 back to 1930 or something like that?
Yeah.
And the answer was between 8 and 10%. That's basically, depending, again, what you use. Okay, and most people kind of guess that. Okay, how many times in a calendar year in the last 60 years has the S&P returned between 8 and 10%? And the answer was 4.
Get out.
4 calendar years out of 60. And I believe one of them was 2021, actually. So
that's fascinating.
2019, I can't remember the date, but so the bottom line is it's actually much more volatile than that. I think another stat that just blew my mind was that the S&P is up or down 15%, 74% of the time, or something like that. So this idea that you're just going to get 8%, 8%, 8%, 8%. Oh, isn't this great, honey? My investment, our investment's doubled every 9 years. We're going to be millionaires in 18. That isn't really how life works necessarily.
I get how life works. Been beat up on 2007. What did Mark write? I get it. But what do you, Midwest Money Management Group, do different to manage that? I come in with whatever I've got. Connor manages for me because I know my golf buddy said if you do it right, I can get it in 7.2 years of doubles. I'm this age. By the time I'm 84, you're just playing. You're not. How do you manage that with the guy who comes in thinking every 7 years it doubles?
No, absolutely. So there's a couple of. Well, that's a big question. We'll try and get through it before you break. So basically,
but treat me as your customer. I walk into you and I got this much money.
When we have a client come in, or a prospective client, I should say, come in for the first time, we have them fill out a questionnaire. Several of the questions on there are about risk and expectations and things. There are times where we have people come in and they're looking for 16+% a year. And the bottom line is, if we, and sometimes it's, we have to kind of give the benefit of the doubt, and we do. Sometimes filling out that survey isn't super straightforward, and maybe they meant something different. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times maybe they meant 16% by the time they retire total, return, not annualized. But I have had someone come in and go, no, I want to get 16% a year. And if that's the case and that's how they feel, we're just not going to be a good fit. We're not going to come in here and try and hit home runs. We have some pretty high octane strategies, but that is not something we are going to even try to, because the bottom line is, there is almost no one on earth, and this is a very strong statement, but there's very few people who actually can handle that level of risk. And it's not about, hey, things are going well, I got 16%, I got 20%, I got 30%, this is great. That's not what I mean when I say risk. It's when that same investment is down 60%, 70%, 80%, it disappears, because that is the type of risk you need, or you need to be able to handle to get those outlandish ones. And that's also part of what an asset manager is supposed to be. If there was no emotion and frankly no humans involved in investing, it'd be very, very simple. Basically, you just buy the companies that make money and then blast off to Mars and come back in 50 years and you'll be happy. But the bottom line is, both mathematically from a research standpoint and psychologically, we did a survey with our clients many years ago. Once people lose 20% in their portfolio, that tends to be, and there are people that are upset by less than that, of course, but that tends to be where in mass people start making damaging decisions, such as leaving the plan, dump everything without a plan to get back in. So we have a somewhat complicated, but just a little tough to get into in 2 minutes, but a process that smooths out the ride for folks, and gives them some reassurance and keeps them invested when it's part of their plan, and that's what's best for them.
I throw it out just because as you're talking, it hits me. It isn't just Al comes in and says, here it is, I want 16%. You're like, sorry, that doesn't fit. But it's Al and his spouse, Al and his wife come in, and they're not necessarily the same people. Al might, let her ride, baby, put it all on black and let's roll. And the wife's like, nah, I've been working too hard for this. How do you marry the two? Let's do this. Let's do that on the other side. We got to go into the break. When we come back to ask, because that's got to be even more complicated. Maybe if everybody's willing to risk it, let's let her fly. But
super common situation.
All right, we'll talk about it with Connor from Midwest Money Management.
Achieving your financial goals requires individual planning and a comprehensive approach. At Midwest Money Management, our mission is to provide you with the knowledge, tools, and confidence to feel comfortable financially today and secure about tomorrow. Learn more at MidwestMoneyManagement.com. That's MidwestMoneyManagement.com.
Securities offered through JW Cole Financial Inc., member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services offered through JW Cole Advisors Inc., Midwest Money Management, and JW Cole Financial Inc. and JW Cole Advisors Inc. are unaffiliated entities.
Do you have a closet full of old videos, photos, slides, or films? Regain that space and preserve those memories for future generations. Visit archivinglifemedia.com or call 952-829-8018. See how safe and simple it is to digitize all your media. Gain peace of mind knowing that all those important memories will be saved and can be seen and shared again. Do it today. Check out archivinglifemedia.com or give them a call, 952-829-8018. It's the Al Travis Show, and we're lucky to have Connor on with us with Midwest Money Management, talking all things money. Let me ask you this, Connor. So me and the spouse come in, generic people, got whatever, and we want to talk to you about putting it into wherever we're going to put it. We'll get to that. But you found out Al is a gambling man. Oh, put it on red. Let's let her fly. But the wife, she's sensible. She's like, yeah, I really rather not risk any of the principal, whatever. How do you go about managing that?
Yeah. Well, it's a delicate balance, especially when you're in the room with both of them at the same time. And oftentimes in those dynamics, they're kind of telling each other things as well. And you're sort of just sitting there listening to them have their marital conversation. So there's definitely a delicate, again, the people piece of our business is the biggest part. Now, I would say we take those kind of chunk by chunk. So if you, for example, are shoot for the moon, hit the home run, either you're going to hit a home run or you're going to strike out and you got to, 10, 100 batting average. We're going to probably try and rein you in a little bit. And then for her, we might try to encourage her or talk her through sort of what the benefits of taking some risk are. If she truly says, well, I don't want to lose any principal. Well, now we're talking about money market. You're talking about a CD, things like that, which is fine. Ultimately, it's going to come back to what does the actual plan say? So what kind of return do we need to support the lifestyle for your retirement or for your college planning or for whatever the goals are that we're also talking about? We're very seldom taking the investments in a silo and just here's a pot of money. Some folks do that and we limit the scope of our relationship and that can be fine. But most of the time we're being comprehensive. We're talking about all their life goals and we're trying to help them achieve it. And if she can, for example, be more conservative in her accounts and he can be more aggressive or vice versa, because it does happen the other way around for sure. We might kind of barbell or do some of that mixing.
What, when it comes to Midwest Money Management, this is your guys' philosophy now. We've seen volatility, that whole tariff thingy from 5 months ago, whatever that was, scared the bejesus out of a lot of people. And now we seem to be, I think, back where we were before that. I mean, roughly, whenever you're hearing this. But when you get a couple in and you're talking about this, and I'm looking at the rule of 72, I want 10%, and you're like, well, that's not how this works. Do you guys come up with that plan to say when it's good times, this is what you can expect, but we can limit the bad times? I mean, how do you...
for sure. So we take probably, I would say definitely a unique approach compared to a lot of our peers in the industry. We do have strategies that are actually tactical. And the bottom line of what that means is every day we decide if we want to own what we own or if we want to make a change. That's as simple as I can say it. Sometimes that means we're selling something that's misbehaving, as I say. Okay. Sometimes that means we're adding something. Like yesterday, we added some stock exposure, with markets rallying and things like that. So we are a little bit tactical. That's really good when it comes to those nerves. So especially somebody who says, hey, I can't handle the political environment. I'm scared of the war. I'm scared of tariffs. I don't like the election. We're definitely going to talk about the logic and about the being long-term and these things, but there also is a sleep at night factor knowing that we aren't just going to watch your money, fall to the bottom and say, hey, when you call in scared, say, well, it'll come back eventually. That isn't how we do it. Now, in terms of setting expectations, we definitely have, what we believe is reasonable expectations for long periods of time. But again, Al, we kind of talked about it before the break. What a long period of time is and what actually happens to get you to an average rate of return of 8 or 10 or 12 is wildly different. So again, for example, the S&P 500 is something people talk about a lot. There's something called a lost decade, if you've ever heard of that, between basically January 1 of 2000 and the end of December of 2009. The S&P was negative on average for that 10-year period. And obviously a lot happened. We had the dot-com bubble crash and the housing market financial crisis. So it was very, very, very volatile. And that was a particularly volatile time. But literally the S&P, which, averages 8%, doubles, whatever people say, it's all over the place. There's plenty of times where international stocks outperformed. The truth is, if you go back to the beginning of individual investments, essentially, small caps tend to have a bigger rate of return than large cap does, small companies. The startups that become the big companies, essentially. But again, you have to be willing to take more risk. So it's just an educational thing generally. if somebody's looking to really reach and really grow their assets quickly, they have to be okay with more downside and less protection and less steady of a ride, because if you're going to try and really grow quickly, you just have to be okay with that. And I will say that people don't really know if they're okay with that until they actually start to experience some of the downside like we have here this spring.
All right. Massive sale pitch coming from Midwest Money Management for me, please. The difference between the size of your company, which can buy and sell everything everybody else does, I presume, and the huge guys you see on TV advertising in the Super Bowl because they got millions of dollars and massive people. What 3, 4, 5 of you guys? How big are you as far as, because I like the relationship. I like the fact that I'm talking to you about this. The guy I use from the national company, I don't know who he is.
Yeah, so we have 4 planners on the team, and we all work with as a team. So what we mean by that is we actually work as a team, and everybody here all are firm clients. So there isn't hey, you're the president's client and you're Connor's client and you're Cam's client and Corey's client. Everybody works with everybody. So when somebody calls in, you don't get to the 1-800 number. You're not going to get going to voicemail. You're actually going to get someone picking up, and then you're going to get to an answer as soon as possible from one of us. And all of us should be up to speed on your situation for the most part. And there's 6 of us total on the team right now. It's family owned, and there's a lot of benefit to that. I was just talking to a gentleman who is a client with us, has some money at another firm as well, and he was talking about how he's kind of been assigned to this person in another time zone. The person really doesn't want to talk about planning. It's kind of just, hey, you've got money here. What can I tell you so you don't take your money away? And it's just transactional. Now, that's not to say the big firms are bad or that it's just different. And some people really want that sort of the name brand or the skyscraper office or that's fine. But we're gonna benefit those people who are kind of looking for that deep relationship. We want to work with people for 40 years plus. I mean, we have, I think it's 2 now, 3 generational households. Where we had a great grandparent, the kids, and then the kids' kids. So that's a big difference, I think, for us.
Let me throw the marketing side on for you. How do I get a hold of you then? Got a phone number? What do I got to do?
Yep.
Landing zone here.
Always MidwestMoneyManagement.com, MidwestMoneyManagement.com. And that's also the email, by the way. So if you want to email me, Connor, or team at MidwestMoneyManagement.com, that's the easiest thing. If you want to call 612-204-3000, 612-204-3000, you'll get one of the very cheery folks, potentially me, answering the phone if someone's already on another line, which would be great. And we'd be happy to just see if we're a good fit.
Connor, I appreciate you coming on and talking all this stuff with us. So you come across like you really mean it and you really do care. And I love that. I thank you for being on the program.
Thanks for having me, Al.
It's Dollars and Cents, brought to you by Midwest Money Management.
Achieving your financial goals requires individual planning and a comprehensive approach. At Midwest Money Management, our mission is to provide you with the knowledge, tools, and confidence to feel comfortable financially today and secure about tomorrow. Learn more at MidwestMoneyManagement.com. That's MidwestMoneyManagement.com.
Securities offered through JW Cole Financial Inc., member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services offered through JW Cole Advisors Inc. Midwest Money Management and JW Cole Financial Inc. and JW Cole Advisors Inc. are unaffiliated entities.
You've been listening to Dollars and Cents, brought to you by Midwest Money Management, your local full-service comprehensive financial planning team. Midwest Money Management is located at 17316 Kenyon Avenue in Lakeville, Minnesota. Securities offered through JW Cole Financial Incorporated, member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services offered through JW Cole Advisors Incorporated. Midwest Money Management and JW Cole Financial Incorporated and JW Cole Advisors Incorporated are unaffiliated entities. Any opinions expressed are those of Midwest Money Management and not necessarily those of JW Cole Financial. You should consult a qualified professional for advice on tax and legal matters.